NASCAR now sharing that legend Kyle Busch has died. And just a couple minutes ago, we told you that he was going to miss this upcoming race because he was in the hospital. We are now hearing from NASCAR that his death, which was announced by the family, by NASCAR as well.
On a quiet Thursday afternoon in May of 2026, the heart of one of the greatest racers in NASCAR history stopped beating. Kyle Busch was only 41 years old. Less than 18 hours earlier, he had been standing on his own 2 feet inside a Chevrolet building. By the time his family released the truth about what had taken him, the entire racing world was already in tears. The fortune that broke their hearts. Kyle Busch died on Thursday, May 21, 2026, at the age of 41. Less than 2 days earlier, he had walked into a Chevrolet building in Concord, North Carolina, to test a driving simulator. Around 5:30 on Wednesday evening, his lungs gave way without warning. Staff members found him lying on the bathroom floor, struggling to breathe, with blood on his lips. An ambulance rushed him to a hospital in the Charlotte area, where doctors discovered that severe pneumonia had already spread into his bloodstream and triggered the deadly chain reaction known as sepsis. By the time the sun rose on Thursday morning, the two-time NASCAR champion was gone. By the time Kyle Busch took his final breath, his name had become tied to roughly $80 million in wealth. That figure does not even begin to tell the full story. His salary alone at Richard Childress Racing sat at $16.9 million a year, which made him the highest-paid driver in all of NASCAR. He had built a Lake Norman mansion that he bought for $7.5 million back in 2012. He also owned a 35-acre estate in Cleveland, North Carolina, complete with underground garages and its own off-road track. He had quietly invested in Chevrolet dealerships across 2 different states. His car collection included a rare Lexus LFA worth around $2 million, parked right next to the championship cars he drove to victory in 2015 and 2019. On paper, his family will never have to worry about money again for the rest of their lives. But Samantha, Brexton, and little Lennox are not crying over what he left behind in dollars. They are crying over what he never got the chance to finish. Richard Childress Racing made a stunning decision just 1 day after Kyle passed away. They temporarily retired the number 8 from competition. That number will sit on the shelf, untouched, waiting for one specific driver to claim it. That driver is Brexton, who is only 11 years old. Every time the team sends out the substitute car wearing number 33, the family will be reminded that the seat truly belongs to a son whose father will never coach him into it. And if you think that is the heaviest part of this story, you really have not heard the worst of it yet. The paperwork Samantha reviewed contained something far more painful than the houses and the businesses. It contained a list of dreams that Kyle had been chasing right up to the day he collapsed. To understand why this hurts the family so deeply, you have to go back to the final hours of his life. Because what happened on that Wednesday afternoon, nobody saw coming. The phone call nobody wanted to make. On Wednesday afternoon of May 20th, just 1 day before he died, Kyle walked into the General Motors Charlotte Technical Center in Concord, North Carolina. He was there to test a Chevrolet driving simulator like he had done hundreds of times before. Around 5:30 in the evening, something inside his lungs gave way. Staff members found him lying on the bathroom floor, struggling to breathe, with blood on his lips. Someone grabbed a phone and dialed 911 as quickly as their hands could move. The caller's voice was shaking when he reached the operator. He explained that a man inside the building was conscious but barely holding on. He told the dispatcher that the person on the floor felt hot to the touch, was short of breath, and was coughing up blood. He even asked the responding ambulance to come in without sirens, hoping to avoid drawing a crowd in front of the building. Within minutes, Kyle was rushed to a hospital in the Charlotte area. Doctors quickly identified what they were fighting against. Kyle had developed severe pneumonia in both of his lungs. That infection had already begun spreading into his bloodstream, which set off a deadly chain reaction that the medical community calls sepsis. Sepsis is basically the body's own immune system going into a panic, attacking its own organs while trying to kill the original infection. Once that storm starts inside a person, every single minute matters. The doctors worked through the entire night. They pushed every treatment they knew. But by Thursday morning, less than 18 hours after Kyle had walked into that simulator complex, his body could not fight anymore. 2 days later, on Saturday of May 23rd, the family released a formal statement through a Kyle Busch Company's executive. That statement spelled out exactly what had taken him: severe pneumonia, rapid and overwhelming complications, a request for privacy. But here is the part that haunts everyone who knew Kyle best. He had actually shown signs of being sick almost 2 weeks before that hospital bed. The warning had been right there, broadcast over the radio for thousands of people to hear. And just 5 days before he collapsed, he had stood in Victory Lane saying words that now feel like a goodbye nobody understood. The victory that was secretly his last. Let's rewind to Saturday of May 10th. Kyle was racing in the Cup Series at Watkins Glen in upstate New York. After the checkered flag waved, he came across the team radio asking for a doctor. He needed what he called a shot. The broadcasters explained that he was fighting a sinus cold and that the high speeds combined with elevation changes had made him feel awful all afternoon. He still managed to finish in 8th place, which shows you just how stubborn this man could be once he climbed behind the wheel. 5 days later, on Thursday evening of May 15th, Kyle showed up at Dover Motor Speedway for a Truck Series race. He was driving for Spire Motorsports, which was the same team that had bought his old company. Despite still feeling sick, he wrestled his way to Victory Lane that night. That win became his 234th victory across the 3 top divisions of NASCAR. Nobody in the history of the sport has ever won more races than that. Standing in Victory Lane with sweat still rolling down his face, Kyle picked up the microphone and said something that now feels like a prophecy. He told reporters that you take whatever wins you can get, because you never truly know when the last one is going to come. He told everyone to cherish them all, and he said, "Trust me, those 4 small words sit very differently now." The next morning, a sports writer named Jeff Gluck caught Kyle on camera and asked how he was feeling. Kyle admitted that he was still not great. He talked about how the cough had been pretty substantial the week before. Yet, he kept on racing anyway. On Sunday, May 17th, he climbed back into his Cup car for the All-Star race at Dover. He finished 17th. Nobody knew it at the time, but that was the final lap Kyle Busch would ever drive in NASCAR's top series. The next day, on Monday, May 18th, he sat down at home and wrote a birthday tribute for his son, Brexton, who was turning 11 that very day. He shared a family photo and talked about how proud he was. Samantha posted her own tribute that same afternoon, calling Kyle the most incredible husband and father a family could ask for. 48 hours later, the simulator collapsed. And tucked behind all of this was a love story that almost never had a happy ending in the first place. The woman who saw the warning signs. Samantha was a psychology student at Purdue University in Indiana when she first crossed paths with Kyle. She was working as a promotional model at a Chevrolet event back in 2007. Kyle was 22 years old, fresh off his Rookie of the Year season, and according to Samantha herself, the first thing she noticed was that he had been assigned a way better job that day than she had. She climbed into the car next to him, made a small joke about his cool t-shirt, and the rest unfolded slowly from there. 3 years later, on the very last day of 2010, they got married at Holy Name Cathedral in Chicago. What the public did not know for years afterwards was that this couple struggled badly just to have a child. Samantha went through round after round of in vitro fertilization, painful miscarriages, and emotional breakdowns. In one interview, she described feeling like her marriage was spiraling out of her control. She admitted that the word divorce had started to feel real, and that fear had become her daily companion. Kyle, she said, was her rock through every single moment of it. Brexton was finally born in May of 2015, the same year his father won that first Cup Series championship. The miracle of that little boy inspired Samantha to start a charity called the Bundle of Joy Fund. That organization has now helped pay for fertility treatments for more than 100 families across the entire country. Over 100 babies exist today simply because Samantha refused to let her own pain go to waste. Years later, the couple wanted to give Brexton a sibling. After another miscarriage and a failed embryo transfer, they decided to work with a surrogate. Their daughter Lennox arrived in May of 2022. Samantha called her tiny Peanut and shared the news with the world through tears of pure joy. Now think about this for a moment. Samantha spent 15 years fighting just to build her family. She fought against her own body. She fought against the fear of losing the man she loved most. She built a whole charity to make sure no other woman would face that same loneliness. And then, on what should have been an ordinary Wednesday, the man who held her through all of it collapsed on a bathroom floor. The promises he made to his son and his daughter are now hers alone to carry. Speaking of his son, what Brexton has already accomplished in 11 short years on this planet might surprise you more than you would ever expect. Brexton Locke Busch was born on May 18th of 2015. By the time he was only 5 years old, his father had already strapped him into a tiny race car at Millbridge Speedway in North Carolina. Within months of his very first start, the little boy was already winning. By 2024, he had piled up 48 victories in junior racing. By 2025, Brexton had captured the INX Bandolero Bandits National Championship, along with the Tulsa Shootout Junior Sprint title, which earned him the famous Golden Driller Trophy that every young racing kid in America dreams about. His total number of career junior wins had climbed past 150 by then. Kyle had a clear vision for his son's path. He wanted Brexton inside late models by the age of 12 and inside super late models by the age of 14. He believed the boy could grow up to win across multiple racing surfaces, just like Kyle Larson. Just one day after Kyle passed away, Richard Childress Racing announced that the number 8 would be temporarily retired. They would replace it with the number 33 until Brexton was old enough to climb inside a cup car himself. Then, during the pre-race tribute at the Coca-Cola 600, a small boy walked across the infield to hug Brexton. That boy was Owen Larson, the son of Kyle Larson. And that hidden empire is where the next chapter of this story truly turns. The empire that almost crushed him. Kyle was never satisfied with just driving fast cars. He wanted to own them, manufacture them, and build them from the ground up. In 2010, while still racing for Joe Gibbs, he founded a team called Kyle Busch Motorsports. That team won more than 100 Truck Series races over the course of its history. It also gave a launching pad to drivers like Eric Jones, Christopher Bell, William Byron, and Bubba Wallace, all of whom now race full-time in the Cup Series today. But when Kyle made the difficult decision to leave Joe Gibbs Racing and switch over to Chevrolet at Richard Childress Racing in 2023, his truck team suddenly lost its Toyota alliance. Performance dropped fast. By September of 2023, Kyle agreed to sell the entire operation to Spire Motorsports. The deal included his manufacturing arm, called Rowdy Manufacturing, along with the 77,000 square foot facility in Mooresville. Court records pegged the total transaction at around $14.5 million. Just a few months later, Kyle had to break another piece of difficult news to his fans. His energy drink brand, called Rowdy Energy, was shutting down completely. He had launched that company in 2020 alongside an entrepreneur named Jeff Church. The drink had reached 50,000 stores across the country and raised $13 million in funding. But on January 10th of 2024, Kyle posted a statement saying the headwinds had become too strong to push through. He needed to refocus on his family and his racing career. On the real estate side, Kyle had also been making big moves. He listed his Lake Norman mansion for nearly $13 million in 2023. He listed his Cleveland barn dominium for $4.5 million in 2025. When that property failed to sell at the listed price, he subdivided the 35 acres into smaller lots. He wrote on social media that the family simply did not have enough time to spend at the estate anymore. Meanwhile, he was still racing in the final year of his Richard Childress Racing contract. The team had just exercised its option to keep him through the end of 2026. He had not won a cup race since his victory at St. Louis on June 4th of 2023, almost 3 full years earlier. He was chasing a comeback. He was chasing a third championship. He was chasing one race that had haunted him for almost 20 years. And that race was about to honor him in a way nobody could have ever predicted. The goodbye that stretched from Indiana to Charlotte. Memorial Day weekend of 2026 was supposed to be one of Kyle's biggest weekends of the entire year. Instead, it became one of the most painful tributes the racing world has ever witnessed in a single afternoon. Up in Indianapolis on Sunday morning, the Indy 500 took place under blue skies and warm sunshine. As the cars exited Turn 4 on lap 17, the giant scoring pylon at the speedway lit up with Kyle's name and the words 1985 to 2026. On lap 18, the entire facility went completely silent. The number 18 had been Kyle's car number during 15 seasons at Joe Gibbs Racing. He had won 55 Cup races wearing that number. He had captured both of his championships behind that number. Dale Coyne Racing even changed the font on Romain Grosjean's number 18 IndyCar to match Kyle's exact NASCAR lettering. 20 minutes after that tribute ended, a Swedish driver named Felix Rosenqvist crossed the finish line to win the closest Indy 500 in history. He beat David Malukas by just 23 thousandths of a second. The irony of that finish cut very deep. Kyle had spent years trying to enter that race himself. On Denny Hamlin's podcast just last year, Kyle had revealed that Joe Gibbs had personally blocked his Indy 500 attempt back in 2018. He had another deal almost completed with McLaren CEO Zach Brown later on, but the financing fell apart at the last possible minute. That ride eventually went to Kyle Larson instead. Hours later, down in Charlotte, the Coca-Cola 600 prepared for its green flag. All 39 cars rolled out wearing small black number 8 decals on their hoods. Pole sitter Tyler Reddick led the field around the parade lap, with the front row position deliberately left empty in a missing man tribute. On lap 8, the entire grandstand held up 8 fingers in pure silence. NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell stood beside Samantha, Brexton, Lennox, Tom, Gay, and Kurt on the infield grass and promised the children that their father loved them with all of his heart. Kurt walked alone to the painted number 8 on the infield grass. He laid down 8 white roses, knelt, and made the sign of the cross. Daniel Suarez, a former Kyle Busch Motorsports driver, ended up winning the race in the rain that night. In victory lane, Suarez performed Kyle's signature champion's bow and dedicated the entire trophy to the family. Kyle never did win his 3rd championship. He never crossed the famous bricks at Indianapolis. But on that one weekend in May, 2 entire racing communities stood completely still to remind his family that he was already enough. What part of Kyle's story hit you the hardest, and what do you believe his legacy will mean for little Brexton in the years ahead? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below.